Our discussants are Professor Seongbin and Cecilia Perez, and we also have Janie. I'm back from Australia here. So Professor Hwang, can you begin?
So may I have 5 minutes or 5 to 6 minutes? Okay, thank you very much for your presentations. Should I move to near the camera? Okay, hi, hello. Hello, everyone, and it's a wonderful session. And okay, so only I have only 5 minutes are given to me, and so my questions are about local context and the mechanisms of the change. So, and for the first two presenters from Brazil and Chile, and then I'm just wondering why that happened. Why the change from Hallyu to political activism happened in the local society in Brazil and in Chile. And where are the army's power in, the mobilization technology of K-pop, or the values they pursue, or it's a kind of interactive mechanism. And what are the local context in order to understand the political situation in the local society, Brazil and Chile? Who are the K-poppers in terms of class, education background, and ethnicity, or any other? And how much, how many people are using, how many people can use Twitter or social media? It's a kind of the penetration rate of internet or social media in the local society. And those are kind of basic questions, but I just wonder about the local society, local context, and the mechanism of the change. And then also, I'm just wondering how many K-poppers in Latin America are aware of the political situation in South Korea. And then the South Korean kind of political demonstration or political activism or political social movements, whether or not the South Korean situation may have affected to the Latin American people. And then for the third presentation, I can do both, and sex typing of gender identity. And then, so also I'm just wondering about the local societies. And then, for example, in Turkey, in Istanbul, and I think Istanbul or Turkey is a kind of multi-ethnic and multi-religious, not multi-religious, but it's a, yes, there are kind of variety. In terms of race or ethnicity. And then what kind of differences are still existing among the different groups? And is there any characteristic or characteristic in K-pop fandom in Istanbul? And so, because the respondents of your research are only included graduate students and mostly women, and maybe, so as you already pointed out, and your future research should try to include broader people in Istanbul, and then okay. So for Anel Joven from Philippines, so basic question. So what made all the differences with regard to the kind of popularity of Korean food, Hansik, and how Filipino people regard Hansik. The way Filipino people consider Hansik is a kind of taste or style or image, and then how differently they perceive Korean food from Chinese food and Japanese food. And then, so your conclusion is that the Hansik could overcome the pandemic with the kind of digital technology or aggressive strategy for the application delivery. And then what made all the differences, the reasons, right? And then another question is about also about local context. Who are kind of owning and managing Korean restaurants? Is it Korean people or local people? Okay, those are my question to you. And then for the last presentation. Okay, so I'm just wondering, because your presentation is so much interesting, but so what's your view of the prospects, the future of Hallyu in Vietnam? Just a simple question. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Hwang, for your insightful questions. I just got permission from the organizers that we can have finish our session at 12:10 Korean Standard Time. So we have about maybe we'll have 10 minutes for answers for Professor Hwang's questions, and then we'll go on to Cecilia's questions. Okay, so very insightful, and I know that you will need a lot of time to answer all these questions, but can you answer very briefly, starting from presenters in Brazil and Chile? Virginie, can you answer briefly?
Yes, it's a good question. The fandom in Brazil is multiple. Basically, I believe that Brazilian fans support the Korean wave, and that automatically shows there is a group that consumes this cultural product more than, for example, something from American pop culture. In other words, we realize that this American pop is not that superior. K-pop is strong too. These fans have a sense of Orientalist and defend their idols at any cost. This is not to say that K-pop fans are superheroes. Within the fandom, there are many problems, but when big events or movements like Black Lives Matter, for example, happen, K-pop fandoms usually come together for the greater cause. I don't know if all K-pop fandoms are like that, but in Brazil, it's like that rivals happen. But in important situation, there is a union. So, and in addition, I believe it came about when fans were discovering K-pop and realized the existence of this activism by fans in South Korea. So we were inspired by this activism that at the beginning was more in the sense of supporting the artist. So basically about the activism in Brazil is about it. I think it is at all. Constanza.
Constanza, yes.
I'll try to be really brief about the questions. Chile has a population of 90 million people. More than 90% of the people have access to internet. So the majority of the social media users are in the group between 25, 35 years old. So we have almost 30 million connected phones. The most popular social media is still Facebook, but between younger people, the second one is YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And we see that mostly women use those platforms. So we have a very high connected country and active on social media. So that being said, I think that the power of K-pop fandoms is really big because if you see the data about the white paper of Hallyu or data from Korea Foundation, you can see that, I mean, like 7, 10 years ago, the growth of the Chilean fandoms was the biggest between all the countries in the Americas. And when I said Americas, I considering United States. So the expression of Hallyu and K-pop, dramas, Korean restaurants, Korean cafes, supermarkets, like the ecosystem around fandoms became popular really very early. So another thing that had a huge impact on us was the different protests since 2006 for better education, better quality of life, and everything exploded in 2019. And because it was so violent, because of police violence, all the places, the public places like museums, cultural centers, parks, when younger people got together to dance and share their fanatism with each other, got destroyed. So and then the pandemic started. So it was so traumatic, and like a lot of countries in Europe, of course in United States, and Bolsonaro with in Brazil, the far right has gained a lot of popularity. So, but also in Chile, people are more conscious, especially younger people, about issues like climate change, feminism, indigenous rights, democracy, extractivism, like the dependence that we have from the global north, you know. So that everything helped, because for us, K-pop is not only something that we like, it's like a lifestyle, which is the core thing about the fourth wave of Hallyu. So that was really important for us for the riots in 2019 and after for the campaign. So it was very spontaneous, and everyone was so convinced and involved that we need a new government. We need a younger political class, not the same old elite. So it was very important for us. Like, we need to win against fascism, because this other candidate was against abortion, against basic human rights, basically. So it was very important. About the knowledge of Korean politics, I think that is wider now between younger people. I'm a professor of international relations, and before the knowledge was very little, but now thanks to documentaries and Parasite and everything, thanks to social media, people are more aware of. So I think that the history of Korea and Chile are very similar. our dictatorships were very similar. The period of the transition to democracy was the same. The features of that transition to democracy was very alike. So we're not so different as we thought we were. So I think that the mutual knowledge is getting bigger and bigger, and a lot of people are traveling to Korea, studying Korean and Korean culture. So I think that we are very aware of what is happening in Korea thanks to social media. The Me Too movement and all the protests that started in Korea about 2016, 2018. Actually, in Chile, we have like a new wave of feminism in the universities and different schools discussing about abuse, like different cases of harassment and everything. Latin America is a very violent society. We have a lot of human rights issues. So I think that K-pop, in a way, is like a form to escape, but also something that we feel hopeful about. So I think that's the reason, why our project was so successful.
Okay, thank you so much. I know you're all waiting to answer Professor Hwang's very interesting questions, but I have to give the mic to Cecilia Perez, who is waiting to also give her questions.
Yes,
Cecilia.
I just wanted to say congratulations to everybody. You've done an incredible job, especially with the time difference. I do have just a few commentaries for those two presentations that have done the elections. One of the key points that is good to keep in mind is that beyond just being fans, first they're citizens. So therefore, the things that they value, the things that they care about, that's always going to be at the root of the center. That's why they basically listen to their K-pop idols and, the songs and what their meaning is. So I think that's something that needs to be, brought to the front forth and kept reminded, because first they're citizens. And I think one of the interesting things that could possibly be developed is the coincidence between how these two different fandoms, both in Chile and Brazil, you guys were able to use these meanings of fan community building that is used in Asia in terms of like cup sleeve events and things like that. I think that's something so interesting because it's not been introduced on the other side of the world. So just seeing how that was basically used as a tool and a strategy for campaigns, I think if you guys would look into that and see what was that, I think that would be really cool. But good job. My questions are for Arnal. I do know that Korean export foods is like one of the top important in the Philippines. Therefore, I'm really interested in terms of the food culture, if the infusion of Korean and Filipino food, how is that managed? Are they infusing it more and more with their traditional dishes? Keeping up with the heritage and the culture. I think that's quite interesting. I don't know if you could touch a little bit about that, and as well with Lee Quit Tien with Vietnam and Hayul. I would love to know the progress of Hayul in Vietnam, and how does that look for, and what are some of the gaps that we could do to make it more known in Vietnam and the relationship we have with both of them. So those are my questions.
And I think Jamie has a question for Julia.
I do. Julia, I'm wondering what the best way to contact you is. I think there's a lot of intersections with our work. I'm a PhD student at Curtin University. Actually, Crystal Abaddon is one of my supervisors who I saw referenced in your work quite a lot. I looked for you on Twitter. I couldn't find you, but it would be great to hear more about your greater project that you're working on and connect. That's it. That's my question.
Okay, so
So just quickly write it on chat, my email.
okay, so Professor Tien and the rest of the answers, please.
Yes. For me, the future of Hallyu in Vietnam, I talk, quickly, is still bright and promising because the the particularity, the importance of the relation between Vietnam and South Korea. Hallyu here in Vietnam is strengthened by the political, by the culture, and economic, strategic partnership. At the moment where I live in a province, in important province in Vietnam, we are going, to organize a festival in which, there are many events, not only music show, not only singing K-pop, but also to talk about the cooperation between Vietnam in terms of social economic activity. And only what I worry in the future of Hallyu, that means is Hallyu and South Korea, industry must pay attention to creativity, particularity and diversity, so that it can stay longer in the heart of the Vietnamese. It conquer not only in the teenager public, but every Vietnamese, including me.
Okay.
I think this is okay.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry that we don't have time. Arnel, can you give us a brief answer?
Yes.
And after that,
To Professor
Kansu and
Wang.
Melissa, a short remark by you, and then we will finish our session. Okay, Professor Jovel.
Okay, so to Professor Wang, it's like addressing the question: without Hallyu, without K-pop, without K-drama, would Korean food have actually become that popular in the Philippines? So we're taking a look at that question. So yes, there's something to do with imagery, something to do with presentation. It's more like all of the above. Second is the fact is that if compared to Chinese food, Korean food is considered as unique. It is new, because if you talk about Chinese food, really, we're not really talking about something that is foreign. We're talking about food that has been localized for many centuries. So when we talk about Chinese food, it's part of Filipino cuisine altogether. But if we talk about Japanese food, yes, it is East Asian, but compared to Korean food, the perception is that it is cheaper, it is less expensive compared to Korean food. Now, regarding owners of restaurants, it's a combination. The past 2 decades, it's been Koreans, but nowadays, starting with the pandemic and slightly even before that, we now have Filipinos owning Korean restaurants catering to Filipino clientele. To Professor Cecilia's questions, yes, there is a trend now. Actually, let me point out that when we purchase or when we eat Korean food in Korean restaurants, especially those that are catered towards fast food and those that are owned by Filipinos, it has been localized already. There is that element of local cuisine in the Korean food presentation and in the taste, etc. I mean, just to give you an idea, it's not as spicy, things like that. But the thing is, according to some students from the University of the Philippines that we have surveyed, yes, there is already a gradual, a slow attempt towards fusion between Filipino cuisine and Korean cuisine. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sue and Melissa, final remarks?
First of all, thank you very much for your interest in our study. As you mentioned, Istanbul is a multicultural city and Turkey is a multicultural country, multi-religious also country. Actually, our initial target was to reach 400 people, but because of the time limit, we had only reached to 200 people. So in broader context, we will expand our study to make our questionnaire to reach more people. So the variety of our study will expand, of course. But coming to your question, the fans of K-pop in Turkey are in ages mostly between 12 to 16, I think, Miss Melissa, right? 12 to 16, mostly female, and they are like teenagers. And actually there are Twitter gangs, K-pop Twitter gangs in social media. They are so organized and they are the pressure groups. But unfortunately, we couldn't make interviews with them because we had to ask gender-related questions, and this is a sensitive issue. That's why we cut them out of our study, and we start our demography from age 18. So I think this helps. Thank you.
Any other final questions or remarks? One last question or one last? Okay.
I have a question. Also, can everyone put their contact info in the chat, maybe?
Okay,
And can we have that up on screen? My question is for the people who organize, for the Chilean and Brazilian presenters, but also from the people who talked about gender fluidity and K-pop. I was wondering, do K-pop fans or ARMY in these situations, do they feel like, I'll speak about BTS because I think that's the most prominent. Do they feel like BTS and the message of the group or the song is signaling to take these kind of actions, or it's kind of like the fandoms in different countries kind of, because Koreans will say, well, BTS doesn't say things like that, and things are vague. They don't talk specifically about politics or gender fluidity or whatever. But is it that the fandoms are in each country are kind of a mirror of the values of the fans, or is there something you think from these idol groups, or let's say like BTS, is signaling in their message or their song lyrics or their public statements that kind of aligns with these movements?
Anyone would like to answer? Yes, Sansa. Yes.
Thank you. I've been a fan of BTS particularly since 2014, so I don't know how to say, but for us, K-pop always has been really political, especially in the early stage of BTS career, when their music was very explicitly political and critical about the educational system and the issues of the youth and everything. So at the beginning now, K-pop is so popular between like anyone. Before it was more for the outcasts of the society, the marginalized people. So it was especially popular between women, LGBTQA plus communities. So that's what I added the Stan Luna with the pride flag. So it was a safe space for us. So all the values, all the narratives around, especially BTS work about loving yourself, love others, creating community, talk about class issues was very important. I didn't talk about that here, but when the social uprising started and why the government had this report blaming K-pop fans is because we use edits with using Not Today, Pepsi, or other K-pop songs and BTS songs in particular, and we edited with videos with police violence and aiming people to go to protest and mobilize for a new constitution, new politics, a new system of welfare and more social justice. So because these people are, I'm sorry, but they're kind of like boomers. So if you saw like an edit of a member of BTS with fire at the back, they thought that we literally wanted to burn a place down. And no, for us, it's a symbol. There are idols, so we don't have this leaders of the Cold War or, I don't know, like political, like traditional party leaders. We have our idols, so they give us the motivation to keep fighting and unite each other for a better future. So I think those values and those narratives are very important for us.
Thank you so much. I only have two regrets. One is that the presenters cannot be physically here in Korea to enjoy the very beautiful autumn weather. And another regret is that we don't have plenty of time to continue this discussion and to listen to your presentations in full. But we will have another chance to meet again, I'm sure, because we are all fans of K-pop and we are all connected together. Okay, thank you so much for the presentations and all for the wonderful discussions. And please put your emails and your contact numbers on our chat so that people can contact you. Thank you so much. So please have a good night or good afternoon wherever you are. Thank you so much.
Even good morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning
Thank you.
too.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.